Welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Reitz. I'll be your host, and this podcast exists to help you improve your communication skills. Whether you communicate one-on-one, to a team, from a stage, or from behind a screen, we know that when we improve our communication skills as leaders, it exponentially changes everything. It improves our relationships, it improves our leadership skills, and it improves our business skills. So let's get ready to dive into this next episode. Well, let me ask you a question. How do you get grit done? How do you grit it done? I love that title. I love that question. And so maybe you're already intrigued, but have you ever wanted to start an entrepreneurial journey, but you just didn't know where to start? You ever thought about starting a small business, but you thought, does the world need more small businesses? You ever wondered what it'd be like to invest in a small business? Be a silent partner, be a financial partner, be a hands-on partner. Why are small businesses so important to our economy? Well, we're diving into all those questions today. I have loved researching, reading all of Reid's material and the stuff that he puts out into the world, and it's already been a blessing for me as a small business owner, and I'm excited for his book to come out, How to Grit It Done. He is an adjunct professor, he's an author, speaker. I'm gonna let him share more of a story, but Reid, thank you so much for being on the Speak with People podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited for the conversation.
I love it. Now, Salt Lake City, that's where you're calling from, correct?
Yep, I'm in Salt Lake City. I love the mountains and I love skiing, so I'm in exactly where I want to be.
That's what I was going to ask. Can you see mountains out of every window?
Yep, pretty much. And you know what's the best part about Salt Lake City is that, like you, I used to live in Chicago, and coming back to Chicago in the wintertime, I can never stand getting off the plane because you're walking from a warm plane to, 10-degree weather, right? Whereas in Salt Lake, when I fly into Salt Lake, I have the beautiful Wasatch Mountains to look at. So if I'm flying back in the dead of winter and I have to deal with that cold on the jetway, at least I know there's some epic skiing and some epic outdoor adventures that await, as opposed to a, epically annoying drive from O'Hare back downtown in traffic and snow and sleet and everything. So I always appreciate that part about being out here in the Mountain West.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, hey, before we hop into our conversation, wondered, could you just give our listeners a little bit more of your story? What got you to this place, who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. From San Francisco originally. Fascinating fact about me, my parents back in the late 70s met at the starting line of a running race. My dad, 6'2", his first cousin, 6'5". It was a hot day. They were lubing themselves up with Vaseline to avoid skin shaking for a running race. Vaseline. My future mother walked up. She was like, "Hey guys, can I borrow some of your Vaseline?" and go from there. So my parents met in the 70s over a jug of Vaseline. So that's where I get my love of the outdoors, my love of endurance, my love of exercise. So that's kind of the formative Reid Tileston story. UC Berkeley undergrad, worked in finance for a short amount of time. I had $100,000 saved up, which was pretty cool, and I was 23.
Wow.
That's when I went out to San Francisco's second oldest pub, a place called the Old Ship Saloon. Has a mast of a ship that sunk in 1851 during the gold rush. I was talking to two individuals that worked in private equity, and they were looking at buying out franchisors. But in doing that diligence, they looked at how some of these franchisee locations were doing. And at this point, I was a little bit tired of being a spreadsheet jockey. I wanted to do something more hands-on. But I didn't quite know what to do. Didn't study engineering at UC Berkeley, so I didn't think it was in the cards to go out and be the next founder of Facebook or Google. But after this happy hour, we started to look at these franchise locations more seriously, and it looked to be pretty lucrative. So 3 of us partnered up. I went out and was going to run the first one. We all had equity in it. That club, December 2007, did not do too well. It's when I had my identity that I was a business owner. Because what I did is I dressed up in a purple superhero suit, pounded the pavement in the hot Sacramento summer to sell memberships so the club could make a little bit of money.
Yep.
Then I realized then that, if I want to do this, I want to be the majority owner, because my partners couldn't help too much because they were still having their full-time jobs. Then I went out with that through some series of just plain luck, which I'm happy to talk about. Managed to become a multi-unit Anytime Fitness Club owner-operator, which was fantastic. Then I parlayed that to plenty of other endeavors in the what I'll call the entrepreneurial business world thereafter. So I'm super passionate. So in short, I've been blessed enough to be able to live my American dream through doing this for 16 years. And I want to engage your audience and engage your listeners around how they should consider this to live their American dream, whatever form that takes. So can't wait for the conversation.
Wow. That's so great. Let's just back up 1 second, because not many 23-year-olds have saved up $100,000. So when did you start with that, and what planted that seed that you're like, I'm going to save this? Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in finance in San Francisco at a trend-setting venture capital private equity firm that did secondary work. By the way, that firm when I was there was like 3 guys and then maybe 2 analysts. Now they have like 1.3 billion in change under management. So, but what's so fun for me, and so that's the short answer of how I had it. Plus, UC Berkeley is a public institution, so tuition is just not that high, right? And it was actually a choice. Other schools I gotten into, much more expensive. I wouldn't have left them. I wouldn't have had that financial situation had I not been in that situation. I like the Richest Man of Babylon, by the way. Great rule about financial planning. Just save 10% of what you earn all the time. I think a lot of your listeners are in that space. And, Benjamin Franklin said it best: a penny saved is a penny earned. And as a business owner, by the way, I take that one step further. A penny saved is a pre-tax penny saved, right? So you got to think about it. If you pay, whatever your marginal tax rate is, 33%, right? That is after tax dollars. So think about it from a tax perspective as well when you're thinking about the power of saving money. And the interesting part is that, when I look at the opportunity cost of where my life could have gone if I'd stayed in finance and kind of stayed that route versus where it's gone instead. And I will ignore for a second just the fulfillment part of it, even though I think that's actually more important. But just from a pure monetary standpoint, going out into the Main Street small business world has been it's been financially lucrative to me. And I don't think it's the right path for everybody in any capacity. It's hard work. Personal guarantees are there. Failure happens. Failure can be costly. It's a lot of work. But with that said, though, I wrote a book, Grit It Done, Low Risk Guide to Entrepreneurial Success, where it lays out, what I've learned over the 16 years of doing this. And I would make the argument that if you follow the steps in there, you're going to make this journey lower risk relative to what your alternatives are. Because there's great opportunities to buy existing businesses, to buy franchise licenses and go from there. But it comes down to the first step of assessment. It's got to understand what you are. Are you an employee? Employees are great backbone of the economy. The good ones tend to get promoted. The bad ones tend to find the door. Second avatar is what I'll call an equity employee, and that's a CEO. That's where you have equity upside in the work that you do, and you can afford to work on the business and not necessarily in the business, but you still don't control your destiny. You still are at the payroll. It's a job, essentially. You're still at the payroll of a board or investors. Then you have a business owner. I've been a business owner. I love business owners. Ultimately, if you're a business owner, you get the autonomy, you get the freedom, you get to own the upside. Oftentimes, though, the business owns you more than you own the business. You have to spend your time working in the business. And there's nothing wrong with that lifestyle at all. I've lived it. I love it. Then there's something better, though, which I've had the chance to experience and taste, and that's entrepreneurial business ownership. And that's where you have the freedom, you have the autonomy, you own the upside, but the business doesn't own you. You own the business, and you can make it work for you, and you can have the ability to work on it and not necessarily in it. So none of those 4 avatars are better or worse, but it comes down to understanding which of those that you are. And if you want to become an entrepreneurial business owner, then this is the roadmap that I think makes the most sense for you to follow. So grititdone.com, 99 cents through the end of May. And your audience and your listeners are encouraged to check it out.
Wow, 99 cents to the end of May. Wow.
Because, I teach this stuff as an adjunct professor to MBAs, okay? And ultimately, I think that a lot of people go down this route without knowing if it's the right fit for them. And I see them, spend a lot of time and spend a lot of money on it. So my and there's other great books about this out there, but my mentality was, all right, at its core, I want to make the lowest cost first step for people to kind of analyze this opportunity, see if it's for them or not, and then decide what path they want to take thereafter. So it's the most cost efficient first step in this process. And there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, if there's a business that's, making $2 million of, profits, EBITDA, cash flow, whatever you want to call it per year, it's going to be very competitive to buy. Everyone in the world wants to buy a business like that. But there's also smaller businesses, we'll call them in the range of, $400,000 to $500,000 of EBITDA, cash flow. that you can go and you can get SBA 7A financing to lever up for 80% of the purchase price. You can, I would tell you, use your savings or friends and family to fill the equity gap. There's certainly investors like myself that you can talk to as well if you want to go that route. Then during that process, let's assume that you don't grow the business at all. You just keep it exactly where it is. And let's say that you sell it in 10 years for the same multiple that you bought it for. Then you're going to make more money than you would have if you were the American with a median wage of $1,118 per week. So let's gross it up to $70K per year with the value of retirement and benefits. You'll make more money while you own it. I will tell you, you will probably feel more freedom and autonomy. Maybe not to start with, but you can work yourself into following some of the steps in the book to feel more freedom and autonomy. Best part, most fulfilling part for me about small business is the people. I mean, life in general, small business in particular, is the people you meet along the way. They're the biggest source of both pleasure and the biggest source of pain as well. But there's been some great relationships that I've been able to cultivate over the years, both when I owned and thereafter. As a small business owner, a pile of paperwork is this high. And because of that, you see, I've gotten a sense of how the sausage of this country is made, and it's made me more civic minded. So let's recap. You can make more money. Okay. You could feel more autonomy. You'll meet some cool people, and you'll become more civic minded. To me, it's something that everyone should consider at some point in their life doing. Now, is it easy? No. Yeah. Does failure happen? Yeah. Are there things like defaulting on personal guarantees and, reading our favorite chapter 11, right? Yes. I mean, this world is hard. I'll tell you, nothing in life is easy, right? This is hard, and it's definitely not for everybody. But boy, I think that the upside to it and the risk-adjusted upside to it makes it something that everyone should consider doing. And I wrote a book to kind of outline what I know and give a very low entry barrier, like a low barrier to entry point to start with that, to start that journey, essentially.
So I love this because I do a lot of training with financial advisors, and we're always talking about, the different generations, and especially the boomers. The boomers are at this generation where they're obviously thinking about, their retirement savings and all that kind of stuff and what to do with all those funds. And do you think that someone needs to be more or less risk adverse if they're going to jump in, to some of this business entrepreneurship? Does it help to be more risk adverse? Does it not matter? What do you think about that?
So it's interesting because one thing I'm doing right now is, I teach and I wrote a book on it, but I also, because I like hard things, after my last exit, I engaged in a PhD program, essentially. I can't say PhD yet because I won't actually apply to it till the summer, but I should have a PhD in 2 years. So I'm doing scrutinized academic research. So what's interesting is that I don't know that there is any peer-reviewed studies that can say that it's better to be risk-loving or risk-averse going into these things. What I will say is my own opinion about it is that it's not the right question to ask. The question is, are you willing to go all in to this opportunity? Because it's not easy to find the right business to purchase. It's easier to find the right franchise to buy into. But the real critical question is, are you all in to this endeavor? Because if you are, then you're going to be willing to do the things that you don't really want to do to be successful, right? And if you don't have that mentality, I think that you are setting yourself up for a mediocre at best outcome. If in the case of buying a business, it just means that, you won't be effective in doing it because you're not going to come across as credible. Let's say that though that, you talk to a franchise salesman and you end up buying a franchise and you spend money on it, but if you're not all into the endeavor, then why are you doing it, right? So if you're halfway in, you're halfway out. Go all into it. And going all in my opinion, is the best way to minimize risk. This is not like investing in a stock portfolio, okay, where the value of diversification is critical, okay? Of course, you get a portfolio of, businesses. I mean, that's great diversification, right? We can talk about that. But I think when it comes to doing this for the first time, critical to have an all-in attitude. Yeah. And then with that all-in attitude, you can work hard, do smart things, and you can get that freedom later on. But don't have the expectation that's going to be where things start.
Yeah. Oof, that's so good. So for folks that are on the edge and they're thinking about, okay, investing in a small business, is it better to think through I'm thinking, my local Chick-fil-A, or Jimmy John's or, some type of established company? Or is it great I love what you said about, are you willing to go all in, or, to find some ravenous entrepreneur who has a great idea for an app or, whatever it is? Do you normally steer people to one way or the other?
Let's be crystal clear. If you can get a Chick-fil-A operator agreement, they don't use the word franchise.
Right.
Chick-fil-A is the gold standard of onboarding processes. I think globally, quite frankly, it's probably, the process to get a Chick-fil-A license, 24 to 30 months. Last I checked, don't quote me on this, you pay $10,000 if you get through that process. The acceptance rate is, I believe, don't quote me, well below 1%. Chick-fil-A has a killer onboarding process. It is absolutely amazing. So if you can do the Chick-fil-A thing, definitely go that route. That's a great situation overall. Ultimately, it comes down to assessment. The first chapter, the early chapter in the book is about assessment, where I've created some, very rudimentary tools to assess if you're really all in to going forward with this. Because if you're not, then it's just gonna be handicapping yourself with it. Now, in the sense that you feel like you are all in, then you can get more tactical about, well, what kind of businesses should I buy? What industry should I focus on? And that's where I'm going to tell you that if you want to minimize risk, right, you should either go with what you already understand, where you have experience. So, for example, if someone, was a wealth manager for a number of years, and maybe they want to look at buying a company that does wealth management compliance software, right? Because they obviously understand that space. And on the flip side, if there's an industry that you're really interested in that maybe you don't have experience in, but you know that you want to go that route, then start your endeavors there, right? Look at businesses in that spectrum, look at franchises in that area, because then what you'll do is, whether or not you end up finding a business to buy or you end up finding a franchise to acquire, you're going to push your knowledge forward in that space. You'll have a better network. Maybe you have, connected with some club owners, you would have learned, or business owners, you would have learned more about the space, done some research. Now you should be better positioned to push yourself forward there, whether it be getting a job, doing something entrepreneurially from the ground up, starting a company, buying one, whole nine yards in there. So either align it to what you already know, or align it to something that you are, quote unquote, all into becoming an expert in. And then, kind of independent of what happens, you're going to be in an okay or a better situation than you were before you got involved in the endeavor.
Whew, that's so good. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, we have kind of all these different ideas, and people write about all different, kind of parts of it. Do you have any key, an entrepreneur are these things? Here are some, if you possess these,
and then again, I'll go back to academics, right, where people kind of argue about definitions all the time. So there's really no settled definition for what an entrepreneur is. Believe it or not, you could make an argument either way. But to me, what an entrepreneur is it's somebody that takes action, right? And people will disagree with that, but to me, it's someone who is highly action oriented, and they essentially do what they can at every step of the way to take actions to maximize upside while minimizing and mitigating risk. So that's, to me, what an entrepreneur is, and that's what essentially I said entrepreneurial mindset is as well. Very vibrant debate about that.
Yep.
But I think the critical part to it is that entrepreneurs, you asked this question earlier about risk, right? I said the best way to de-risk in a situation is to go all in. Entrepreneurs are inherently risk. They don't maximize risk. They don't love risk per se. Smart entrepreneurs, effective entrepreneurs, to me, think about how to minimize risk at every single part of the process. If you minimize risk at every single part of the process, and you have an endeavor that's going to be, lower risk than what the alternatives could have been. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how did you settle on, because I love the title of the book. It just grabs you right away. Did you settle on it because just the definition of grit, in and of itself? I just love that philosophy.
It's the power of people is how I settle on it. I had an entrepreneurial employee, which is my way of saying a fantastic team member. The best kind. It was a terrible Thursday. Everything had been going wrong all day long. And then Thursday was also a day that this team member had to balance the books between accounts receivable and field service management software. which sounds easy, I guess, but it's insanely difficult. It's like walking through a minefield, basically. Things go wrong, and it's how she ends the day. It's just hard, and it usually requires reconciliation and a lot of annoying things. So it'd been a terrible day. She had to balance the books to end the day, and she couldn't figure out what was going on. She ultimately had to do some tech support calls, get it figured out. It wasn't her fault at all, and it was going to be a really early morning the next day as well. I mean, super early. So just a quagmire, disastrous situation. But this team member, Marilyn's her name, she got it done. And I was there, and I said, Marilyn, you just have this grit it done attitude. And then I was like, that's kind of a cool saying. And a couple of days later, I was at a business owner CEO forum that I'm a part of for a business owner group. And again, this goes to the power of surrounding yourself by the right people in an endeavor like this, both when you're searching for an opportunity and if you ultimately become a business owner operator, people you surround yourself with are critical. I was telling that story about how much I thought that this team member, Marilyn, was just fantastic. And I used that term, grit it done. Then one of my buddies was like, oh yeah, that's a great term. You should wonder if that's trademarked. And he looked it up and it wasn't. And that's where it began. So key takeaway is it was inspired by people. It was inspired by an awesome team member that just cranked to get something really hard done. And the part I didn't tell about that story is that Marilyn's awesome, but her strength is not quantitative. Her quantitative is actually a weakness. So doing this balancing work, she was not born to do it, right? It's actually really difficult for her. So she did something that she's not good at, but was part of the job and got it done. And then I surrounded myself by a group that was like, that's a cool story. You should do something with this. So that's how it came about. And I do love Angela Duckworth. I'm a very big fan of grit and the whole principle behind it. It's been transformational in my life. I love it. And always that's why I said it. You're going to grit it done. So I think of that grit it done title as just being a homage to Angela Duckworth and the great stuff that she did. Because, I don't know that people realize it. Because I'm delving in academics now, right? I don't think people realize how much work goes into doing a study like she did at West Point around where she came up with a construct of grit. It's not just something that you do for 6 months and then you have like a paper published and you have a book published. This was a multi-year process. You have to do the study. You have to have the theoretical underpinnings. You have to do the study.
Yep.
Get approved for the study. You have to actually go out and do it. You have to collect the data. You have to analyze the data. You have to scrutinize the data. You have to write the findings up. You have to get the findings peer reviewed. Then after that, you have a paper. Then after that, you can write a book, right? So this was not something that she did over a short amount of time. Creating that construct and creating that book in of itself is, requires a ton of grit. And the benefit that she was able to have with that just came from so much hard work. So I think that there's one takeaway from the whole grit story or grit it done thing is just appreciate how much work Angela Duckworth had to do to get that where it was. It was not just a flip a switch and hey, here's this grit thing.
Right. Absolutely. Do you, especially with your experience in academia, and I know you're teaching MBAs, but you probably have taught younger generations and older generations. Do you think one of the generations, this is so generalized, so I apologize, but one of the generations has more grit than others? Do you look at the Gen Z and go, ooh, we got a little bit of worry here for their grit in the future? Or do you think, no, they got tons of grit. They're going to go after it.
Yeah. I think that if you look at the actual construct of what grit is, and I think that, people who have their own understanding of it, I think that the real driver of grit goes back to the core issue that I talked about of assessment and being all in.
Yep.
I tend to think, and I don't want to go out of balance when I start saying this stuff, but I tend to think that true congruency and the real ability to get to grit, which is simply, passion and perseverance, comes from self-understanding and understanding. I believe the childhood issues that congruently, drive who we are. So if you can take those and align them to the right endeavors in life and get to that all-in mentality, then you're going to exhibit grit in the endeavor that you're a part of. Yeah. So if you don't do the assessment though, and you don't really think through like where it is that I want to be going, what really lights me up, what gets me going, then I think it's more difficult to have grit, because grit is just a construct of passion and perseverance. So ask what drives passion and perseverance. Well, if you ask me, then you got to go back to what is intrinsic to you. And if you really go deep, it comes back to oftentimes issues of childhood and issues of relationships. My dissertation advisor, great guy, Richard Boyatzis, does a lot of research around the power of relationships, and his theory, intentional change theory, the one common factor of it is that at every step of intentional change, you have resonant relationships. And my personal experience shares with it is that the times that I've really accomplished things in life and the times that I've really felt fulfillment, right? So now we have both the extrinsic on paper accomplishments and the intrinsic. I felt good about it, or I felt good in the journey of it, is because of the people that inspired me. So, why, for example, did I want to get into adjunct teaching? It's because when I was at business school at Chicago Booth, I had the pleasure, the honor of being a co-TA for the first Entrepreneurship through Acquisition course, which is buying a Main Street business that Booth taught. And I had a great time doing it. I worked really hard, had a great relationship with my fellow TA and the professors. And after I had that experience, I said to myself, I want to be an adjunct teacher at some point. I'd been successful at that point with the fitness centers, but I said I want to go out, buy another business, be even more successful, and then come back and help teach in the way that these two individuals have. So I would tell you that a lot of what gets me to that all-in mentality around doing entrepreneurial business ownership is because of the people that I've met in the process that have inspired me. And frankly, where I got inspiration from also is the team members, like Marilyn. She inspires me. Other team members I've had inspire me. And right now, I don't always tell my students this, but I sometimes I do. I say, you're the inspiration, right? Like, you guys come prepared to class, like, you bring your A game. That just only inspires me to get better, right? So, the key takeaway is that people, for me, are what drives fulfillment and drive results both. So it's critical in the process of becoming an entrepreneurial business owner of who you surround yourself with, right? Both when you're analyzing opportunities, both when you're searching, and when you're ultimately operating. Now, I know that, and the critical thing is that it's all about finding that right fit. So let's say that you listen to this podcast and you say, that Reid guy, I just don't resonate with him. There's something about the way he talks, just doesn't quite do it for me. It just doesn't feel right, Then you definitely don't want to take a class that I teach. But it's key that you have to do that with 6 people or 6 organizations. Diligence them and find out one that just feels gut level right to you. Not always because it's the most expensive or it's the most prestigious or anything like that. I think the best results come from feeling that rapport and that just good fit with that person or that organization. And in the context of public speaking, great leadership experience. I was president of Toastmasters Club in San Francisco, about 95 members. Pelosi was a member. Feinstein was a member. I can't verify Pelosi was a member, but I can verify Feinstein was, but I'm pretty sure Pelosi was, but you can't 100% quote me on that. But I always told people, and I thought it was the best club in San Francisco, and the rankings supported that it was certainly one of the top 3. But what I always tell people when they would come by the club, both when I was president and vice president of membership, is, check us out, check out 6 other clubs, check out all the other ones, and just go with the one that feels right. Because if you want to do the hard thing of getting up and speaking in front of people and take on that challenge, which is, most people fear it. I shouldn't say everyone, but most everybody fears it. It's hard. It's not going to be fun. You're not going to want to do it. You need to be around a group that's going to inspire you and bring out your ideal self in that process. And this is what that club is for me, but it may not be for you. And you're only going to know that if you delve and you check out a couple other ones there. So the same thing applies to when you're going through this journey. Be very thoughtful about who you surround yourself with. And of course, when you're an owner, right, you can create a culture in the company that aligns to you and hopefully aligns your team members to bring out their ideal self as well. So key takeaway, be thoughtful about who you surround yourself with and the peer groups that you have as you go through this process.
So incredibly important. I love that. And I found myself looking for other business owners, who are 2-3, steps down the road, so I could just rub shoulders with them. Hopefully I can learn what they've already forgotten. I love that process to be able to do it. You were talking about the fitness centers. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and also too, I think one thing that people don't always realize is that you want to be around people that you aspire to be like. But sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds. But never underestimate the value of your peers and what your true equals and peers are going to accomplish.
Yeah.
because some of the best things that I've seen people do in this space comes from someone that was genuinely their equal. Because everyone wants to go after the high demand people. It's like, oh, you've done this, you're awesome, you're this and that, right? And maybe they won't make the time for you, maybe they won't, but there are always great people right around you. It's really easy to miss them. And that's where some of those just fantastic relationships can and do come from. And, in classes I teach, I always tell people, it's like, hey, hang out with me. It's great. You follow me, connect with me. I'll make the time. I'll help you. Whole 9 yards. I'll do what I can. But I should be of secondary importance. You should get to know your classmates even more, because they're the ones that are really going to be able to help you. You'll be able to help each other. So don't always focus on like the bright shining star. Focus on the one that's next to you, because they're going to become that. They could become that bright shining star, and you might become that bright shining star, and that relationship that you develop can be transformational if you let it.
Oof, it's so good. I'm wondering what your advice would be to graduating high school students in 2024. We've got a whole different group of students who are now kind of paving a different path, not going to college, trying to make it as YouTubers and different things that way. Do you still think the college path is a great one for someone who sets up some life skills, gets you on the right path for entrepreneurship, those kind of things?
Yeah, it's a very loaded question. I think that the sooner that someone can be intentional about what kind of life they want to live, and then they can push forward towards that, I think the better. I think it's fantastic, the idea of not going to college. I think that what people can make doing like trade work right now is absolutely fantastic. Country needs more HVAC tech. Country needs more commercial truck drivers, coming from someone who has a CDL, and I have, owned a business that had CDL, so I can tell you the shortage there, at least for the foreseeable future. So I think then welders, carpenters, there's just great opportunities out there. And if at the end of the day, you like to pick up a hammer and you want to go do that work, then go do it, right? The country needs that. You can make good money doing it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
And if you get fired up about it, then go that route. Absolutely. Yep. On the flip side, if you're that person that likes to, read Plato, okay, you genuinely enjoy reading Plato, you can stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning reading Plato, and you're so upset that you're like, I wish I knew Greek so that I could read Plato in Greek, right? Then go and get a degree in classics, right? Follow whatever will keep you up till 3 in the morning, whatever will keep you up until 3 in the morning, right? In that case, go to college, go get a doctorate, go get a PhD, become a professor, right? But I think the sooner people can find that, I think the better. What I do think is that I'll use a religious quote that I once heard that said that revelation most often comes to the children of God when they are on the move, not when they are sitting back in their habitation, waiting for God to tell them the next step to take. Now, religion, not religious, no judgment. Just take the core of that quote. It says that if you want to know what you should do, you need to be doing something, right? Wow. So there's certainly something to be said for, all right, I think I want to be a carpenter. I'm going to go out and do that. Yep. And then, 12, 15 months in, you may find, use Angela Duckworth's framework, you don't have the grit for that. It's not the right fit. Cool. Well, maybe in that process, you start to discover what is that right fit. And maybe it is you want to go become a classics professor and study Plato. So I think that there's a balance between going out and doing something to figure out what's really going to drive you longer term and what's not going to drive you. And I think the alternative that you need to avoid is just not doing anything with your life. As long as you're doing something and asking those questions and surrounding yourself by the right people that can, push you on that kind of stuff, I think it's absolutely critical. Because if you go the carpenter route and you got the grit for it, you're passionate about it, and you're really into it, and you're willing to work hard with it, all right, you're a carpenter, you get promoted, then you realize, you know what? I want to go start my own carpentry company. So you go start it. You hire some people. Now you got 6 team members. Then before you know it, you got a dozen. Then before you know it, your customers start telling you, hey, you're doing carpentry work. Can you do painting as well? All right, cool. Now you hire a couple painters. Now you got 18 team members. Hey, I do painting. Do you guys do something random like fan repair? Yeah, I'm handy. I can do fan repair. And you see how that goes, and then start to take that path 40 years forward to now you have a 3,000 person construction company, that is operating all over the Mountain West, right? Because if that's what the path that you have is, and you have that grit to just keep on doing it, and that persistence to keep on doing it, then I think it can lead great places. So my wish for everybody who's graduating high school in 2024 is just experiment around, find that, and then go.
I love that. I love that. This conversation has been so insightful. I took a page of notes. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I want to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. We've been building a library for communicators, for leaders. And so all of our guests, we put some information down, and then we have different sheets with the best TED Talks on communication and the best leadership books. Anyways, for you, just specifically, curious if there's a speaker that every time you listen to this person speak, boy, they just check all the boxes. They leave you fired up. They fill you up. Wondered if you have one of those.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a unique answer to this one, and that's Abraham Lincoln. But it's because Lincoln avidly prepared for and memorized his speeches while he was doing, walks around the Capitol, walks around the park. So he prepared and memorized his speeches. Why that's important, you're a public speaker, I know you're going to get this, is that if you memorize your speeches, okay, then you have the luxury of being able to engage with the audience. Because if you don't know what you're going to say, you're thinking about that all the time, or I should say I'm thinking about that all the time. But if I know what I'm going to say, then I can actually make it conversational. I can drive that engagement, and that's where the real connection happens. So Abraham Lincoln, avidly prepared, he memorized his speeches, and because of that, he was able to truly connect with his audience. So be like Lincoln, do the hard work, take the time to memorize what you're going to say, and the engagement will flow from that.
Oof, so good. Is there a podcast that you go to regularly, either guilty pleasure or on the development side?
So again, a unique answer to this question, which you're going to love because we're going to do it in a couple minutes from now. I was recently on a podcast having these same conversations. It's called How to Exit by Ron Skelton. And after I do every podcast, I always will ask the host, what's one thing that you thought I did well and one thing you think I could do differently? And none of the podcasts that I've been on yet we always do that, but they'd never driven that question except for him. He was like, one thing that we did well, what can we do differently next time, as well as is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't? Or and I was like, Ron, you are warming my heart because that's the exact conversation I wanted to have, except you added a good, solid third question. I think it's critical to live life by the saying good, better, best. And I just appreciated that we were able to use the opportunity for some good, solid self-improvement. So that's my most recent favorite one.
I love it. Last question. Is there a book that you think every leader should read? I mean, this is kind of the one that you got to make sure you've gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, give you a unique answer to it. It's both a book and a movie. Shawshank Redemption. Read the book by Stephen King, and then obviously, if you haven't already seen it, watch the movie. I think it's just a life-changing thing. The key life lessons and leadership lessons that come out of that story are amazing. One, life is unfair. Okay, just take it what it is. Life is unfair. Secondly, is that if you think long term, focus and work hard, that if you do those things, at the end of the day, things are gonna work out. Maybe not in the way that you envision them to, but things are gonna work out. So life is unfair. Okay, work hard, focus, think long term, and then things are going to end up being okay. So I think that the leadership and life lessons that come out of that are absolutely amazing. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that it's a Stephen King book as well,
right?
In addition to the movie. And the Stephen King book is absolutely amazing. I think it's like 4.8 on Amazon or something like that. So I recommend that. I mean, that's a fun Friday if you're like at a Midwestern, winter time. Or I know you're down in Florida now, but that'd be a fun Friday in Chicago or Wisconsin. Yep. It's like, hey, what are you doing? I read Shawshank Redemption and I watched the movie. I mean, I'd love spending 7-8 hours doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love this conversation. I know it will add so much insight and wisdom to our listeners. Where can we send people to find you online? What's the best spot?
Yeah, so first and foremost, grititdone.com, 99 cents through the end of May to buy the book. I'm active on LinkedIn and I'm active on X, Twitter as well. So you can feel free to follow me and engage with me there.
I love it. Well, thank you, sir, for being a part today. Really appreciate this time and look forward to downloading your book and reading it. I can't wait.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have an excellent rest of your Friday.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Speak with People podcast. We hope that you were encouraged. We hope that you were inspired and challenged to improve your communication skills. I want to thank you again for being a part of the Speak with People podcast community. Make sure you don't miss out on being a part of the Speak with People Facebook community group. Just head to Facebook, type in Speak with People, scroll down and join our community, because every single day we're encouraging each other, we're helping each other to improve our communication skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.